Look closely at any major city right before dawn. The people commuting in, the nurses, the delivery drivers, the line cooks, are the ones who actually keep the urban ecosystem functioning. But increasingly, they can't afford to wake up inside the cities they serve. For over 4 decades, their paychecks have barely budged when adjusted for inflation. Meanwhile, the cost of renting or buying a home has multiplied, far outpacing any modest gains in income. Because they can't bridge that gap, average wage earners are forced into long commutes, pushed further and further toward the geographical margins of the economic centers they sustain. We often treat this displacement as a natural side effect of a successful, growing city. It is actually a deliberate, structural failure in how we calculate the value of urban spaces. If you ask most economists why housing costs so much, you'll hear a familiar explanation. It's a simple issue of supply and demand. The logic goes that restrictive zoning has choked off supply, and the only way out is to loosen the rules and build drastically more housing. Yet, look at the skylines of places like Vancouver. They have tripled their housing units since the 1960s and added massive density. Despite that construction boom, prices have only climbed higher. This extreme inflation is happening right now in Sydney, London, and Auckland. These cities have completely different local zoning laws, yet their residents are facing the exact same squeeze. Even when the global real estate market cooled down from its 2022 peaks and interest rates shifted, the actual cost of urban housing remained entirely out of reach for a typical salary. If pouring massive amounts of new supply into these markets fails to lower prices, we are treating the wrong disease. The cost barrier isn't the concrete or the steel, it's the dirt beneath them. This chart reveals a rule that used to govern real estate. From 1950 to about 1980, average wages and housing costs moved in tandem. A region's home prices were strictly tied to what the local workforce actually earned. Then, around 1980, political and economic priorities shifted globally. Governments deregulated finance and began steering the economy away from taxing wealth and supporting wages, focusing instead on protecting and inflating asset values. Look at what happens to the chart after that shift. The lines violently split. The value of housing shoots upward exponentially, completely detaching from the flatlining purchasing power of the people who actually work there. The era where a middle-class wage guaranteed access to shelter ended. In its place, a new system emerged, engineered specifically to benefit those who already held capital. As this new economy generated immense wealth for the top tier, all that global capital needed a secure place to store itself. It found the ultimate finite monopoly. Investors poured trillions into urban land, transforming the ground beneath our feet into a hyper-financialized asset. Today, the dirt inside our major metropolitan areas represents roughly half the value of all non-financial assets across the developed world. This is disastrous for the wage earner. Urban land is no longer priced based on its utility as a place to live. It is priced based on its capacity to absorb and multiply global wealth. This diagram breaks down the value of a typical property to show exactly how this works. The physical cost of labor and materials to construct a building has stayed relatively stable over time. The vast majority of a property's price tag now comes entirely from the dirt it sits on. Economists call this land rent. When a city changes its zoning to allow 10 units on a lot instead of 1, the speculative value of that dirt instantly balloons to absorb the potential profit of those 9 extra units. Because the land price absorbs the new margin, adding all that extra supply does not make the resulting apartments cheaper for the person trying to buy or rent one. Every time a neighborhood becomes more vibrant because of the active labor of local workers and small business owners, the financial reward is passively extracted by the people who own the ground underneath them. The dirt acts as an asset devourer. It captures the economic vitality of the entire city and funnels it straight up the economic ladder. Because the crisis is driven by the hyper-financialization of the ground itself, the global speculative market cannot self-correct to provide affordable shelter. To discipline this runaway market, cities can implement a mechanism called land value capture. By heavily taxing the sudden financial lift that occurs the moment land is upzoned, a municipality can strip the speculative profit out of the transaction, cooling investor appetite and preventing land prices from inflating in the first place. Ultimately, structural repair requires taking a significant portion of urban land out of the global speculative casino entirely. Cities with the highest quality of life achieve it by dedicating land to non-market housing models, utilizing public land trusts, resident cooperatives, and thriving social housing frameworks like those established in Vienna. These models succeed because they redefine housing. It ceases to be a tradable financial asset and becomes critical civic infrastructure, as essential to public health as water lines and transit. Moving away from market speculation doesn't mean building bleak megaprojects. It means designing integrating neighborhoods that are dense, fine-grained, and socially warm. The true value of any city is generated by the physical and creative labor of the people who live and work inside its borders, not by the dirt they stand on. By treating urban land as a public good rather than a speculative asset, we can build a true civic commonwealth, a city that finally belongs to the people who keep it alive.